Okay, welcome everybody. If you have been following along what's going on in Canada, you know that there are some very exciting developments. And I have with me once again, Norman Traversy and Amina M? Yes, Amina M. And she has been tracking and following with Norman. And so they're two birds of a feather right now, hanging out, doing all kinds of things. And didn't we have fun at Parliament Hill, Norman?
Didn't we though? That was awesome. It was humbling.
It really was. And I think that we have a clip of you being there and what really happened. To remind everybody, you're taking Prime Minister Trudeau on for some of the things that we don't think are legal or moral or in the best interests of Canada. And you've decided not to just talk about it and complain about it, but actually do something about it. Do we have that clip ready? Let me show you.
Now this document has a 6-page legal brief. And that 6-page legal brief addresses only 3 issues out of the dozens of issues that we have in this country. The first one, which is, I know, President Trump's most important priority, is children. Child trafficking by the Children's Services, the Children's Aid Society, who are kidnapping children and selling babies. We've got the proof. The second section of this 6-page document concerns corporate corruption, and that is SNC Lavalin and Trudeau. Now, the third one concerns the workplace safety boards, which affects all of us. These workplace safety boards across Canada are amassing tens of billions, and they are investing that money illegally in the stock market.
That amazing, beautiful Canadian
Yes, we have accomplished our mission, and our mission is to serve this document, and it has been served, and we have a receipt from the White House.
So that was just fantastic, Norman.
Was there sound on that?
Yes. Did you not hear the sound?
No, we couldn't hear it.
Okay, I'm sorry that you couldn't hear it. Maybe it's just
okay.
In the transmission, but it was all sound and a whole lot of cheering, Norman. And we talked about the child trafficking. You talked about bringing accountability, and then we went down there and you had delivered the document to the U.S. Embassy. Why do you think Trump is so important at this time, Norman?
His number one priority above everything else is children and the welfare of children. And that's not Justin Trudeau's priority at all. Justin Trudeau's main priority is Justin Trudeau.
And we've decided that that's just not good enough. And to bring in Amina, you began following what Norman was doing, and you did a video with him, and it went to over 2 million views or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, between me and another channel, Ron Valent, he uploaded it, and we noticed the numbers of the views were quite significantly high the first few days, and then it seemed like his channel was shadow banned, so the views went much lower after that. But at one point, it had been noted to be around that 2 million view mark. So it certainly showed on Canada Day when all the people from across Canada came to see Norman, because a lot of them had come up to me and said they came specifically because of that video. So there's a lot of indication that, you know, many people across Canada have been able to see it.
Well, that's what I found as well, Norman, that people are excited about what you're doing. Why do you think this has struck a chord with Canadians?
Because it's a little guy taking on everybody. I'm taking on the Ottawa establishment, not just Justin Trudeau. I'm taking on the whole machine. And people love a little guy that fights back. And that's what happened. And that's why I'm getting so much help. I told Amina, anytime I need something, I get it. And anytime I need a person, that person shows up. So like Amina, when I met Amina, she said, are you Norman Traversy? And I said, yes. And she said, would you do an interview with me? And I said, sure. We went around to the Flame on Parliament Hill, and she held up a cell phone, and not a camera or any kind of rig or anything like that, just a cell phone in her hand. And I said, how many views do you think you're going to get? And I think she said something like, I'm just starting out on this, probably around 400, and over 2 million in a couple of days. It was just awesome.
Well, I think, Norman, you said that you're a little bit like Forrest Gump, which is something I have said about myself. Forrest Gump-esque is what I call myself. But you keep ending up in life. You've had several pictures where you're in the picture with the Prime Minister, or different things have happened. But maybe because, Norman, there are angels watching over you, and maybe there is a destiny behind this. You've said every time you need something or someone, it shows up to help you to get it done. And you're just a firefighter. Retired.
That's right. Yeah, just a firefighter. So I'm not kicking in doors anymore. I'm opening doors, I guess you could say.
I think that people are very fed up with what is happening in Canada. It's not just the the money that's flying out, the economic shutdown, the crazy masks that they're beginning to force us to wear. I think that is going to be the next step, that it is going to be a whole lot more mandatory mask wearing. I've seen that out in Ontario, and it's the forced shutting down of freedom, which is then, that's a small thing in comparison to some of the things that we think are wrong with the corruption that is in the RCMP, that is in the judicial system, that is in the government system. And we basically are done with it. We're mad as hell, as you said, and we're not going to take it anymore.
Laura Lynn, an hour ago, I went to Loblaws, which is a Canadian grocery chain, to buy milk. And I walked to the door, and the lady there said, you're going to have to put a mask on. If you don't have one, we have masks here. And I said, no, I'm not. And and she said, well, you have to, it's mandatory. And I said, no, it's against my religion. And that was it. They let me in without a mask.
Good for you. That reminds me of the very painful experience I've had in flying across the country. And having to put my foot down saying that I would not wear masks. So when you go onto Air Canada now, you get this little gizmo. Do you know, this is like something I'd expect to get if I went for a hospital visit or an overnight in emergency. You'd get this little medicinal thing. This is what the airlines are giving out. It's got gloves, it has a mask, water, sanitizer with conditioning aloe. Thank you for that. And wipes. And I had to go to Ontario, where they told me that I had to wear a mask. And all the way along, I said, no, I have a medical exemption. Now, it so happens that I have lupus and I have a little bit of asthma and I have a puffer. But my true medical exemption is the same for every person in Canada. You are lowering our immunity system, and you are causing our bodies to go into, at times, shock if we have to wear those masks too long. They're forcing people at, Loblaws or Walmart or Air Canada, all of the people that had to wear those masks, they're making our country crazy with this mask thing.
Really are, Laura Lee. It's really appalling because I really advocate human rights, and I feel this so strongly. We are just giving up our human right. We're handing it over. And, it was okay for Justin Trudeau to have a protest for Black Lives Matter. There was no social distancing. I tend to call it social isolation, and not very many masks were worn. So there seems to be a double standard in a lot of the things that we're seeing, and
there really is, Amina. Do you know, when I was on the way back, I got in the doors and they said, "Do you have your mask?" I said, "No, I have a medical exemption." He kind of looked at me and goes, "Okay, go ahead then." So then I got to security and a fellow asked me if I could put my mask on. I said, "I don't have a mask. I have a medical exemption." He said, "Okay." Then a couple minutes later, he said, "I'm going to go and talk to a supervisor." I said, "Sure, go right ahead." And I was prepared. I have a little card that says that I'm exempt. These great people that were there on Parliament Hill created these these cards that tell you all of the reasons that masks are bad for you and that we're exempt from it because we have immunity systems. So he ran off, and then another fellow said, do you have your mask? As I got down, because they flagged my bag. I had some water in there that I'd forgotten about. And I looked at him and I said, "No, I have a medical exemption." He says, "You look kind of familiar." And I says, "Well, I do TV in the past and I'm a video blogger now." And he goes, "Yeah, you look real familiar." And I said, "How do you feel in that mask?" And he goes, "Oh, it's just, I just don't feel good." That's an Air Canada person. I had 3 different Air Canada employees complain to me, kind of private, about the masks that they have to wear. And I said to all of them, "Who's the first Air Canada employee who's going to sue Air Canada for lowering their immune system and for compromising their health?" So when I got on the plane, finally, I had to bypass all these people. I kept getting past because I just said I have a medical immunity. This lady came up to me and she said, "So you're not wearing a mask and you can't wear a mask. What is the problem?" She had a real attitude. I filmed the whole thing on my phone. I just held it up to her. Real attitude. And I said, "Yeah, I do not want to have this. I do have some asthma. I have a puffer if you'd like to see it, but I don't want to wear a mask. I would have had to already be in a mask for close to 2 hours by now. And you want me to wear it on another 4.5, almost 5-hour flight, plus getting through the airport on the other side." And I said, "It's going to make me sick." And she said, "You just need to put your mask on." And I said, "What's your name?" And she said, "That doesn't matter." And I said, "Yes, it does. What is your name?" "Why do you want to know my name?" I said, "I want to know the person that I can write down and put in my complaint as to who made me sick on this flight." And she said, "I don't have to tell you my name. It's not my policy. It's Air Canada." So then she finally gave me her name, which was Sylvie, by the way. And she said, "I'm the only Sylvie on this thing. You don't need my last name or whatever." Then I had to leave the plane and talk to another person who had a doctor on the phone, had to verify that I could get on this plane without a mask. And you know what? It was worth every bit of that fight. Then they moved me from my seats to primo seats because I was not allowed to sit with any other passengers 1 seat across. I had to be alone. They moved me to the most leg room with a TV that popped up. I had a wonderful experience after that. Everyone stared at me. They're kind of like, "Why is she not wearing a mask?" Everyone in Canada needs to know that we are being duped. Our immune systems are being compromised. And this is just the beginning.
It is.
Laura Lynn, since when do you have to disclose anything about any medical condition you may have?
Do you know what? You're right, Norman. I just saw a video this morning and they said that you shouldn't have to disclose your medical information. You just say
nobody's business if you've got asthma or lung cancer or whatever. It's no one's business.
I have the right to breathe. And
yeah, I guess you do, don't you?
And I think that's the issue.
Yeah, I have the right to breathe. That's a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Let me show you guys this video.
I just want you to remember that if they ask you to wear a face mask, and all you have to say is, assuming this is true, that you have an exemption, you have a medical exemption. And if they ask you what that medical exemption is, they have just violated your HIPAA rights and your American Disabilities Act rights, because nobody can ask you what your medical condition is. They cannot, by statute, by law, ask you that. That is against the law. All right, at least in the United States. Now, outside the United States, it's a little bit different.
So it's almost as if we planned that, what you just said, Norman. I don't know what the law is in Canada, but I'm not going to tell anyone again what my medical condition is. I just don't want my immune system compromised.
Exactly. And I've heard, there's so many stories about how unhealthy the masks are. I met a health professional yesterday, just sitting in a coffee shop having coffee, and we started talking, and she's advocating what she knows as a professional to many people in the restaurants and to the servers, that the masks are unhealthy, and it is not it's not something that she would advise to wear and to keep your health in good health. So, we really have to do our research and ask questions. It's really important. There are so many things to learn about this. We're just told certain things and we comply. And a lot of things are not making sense. They really are.
A lot of things are not making sense, and you guys are beginning to tackle it. And before we get to how you guys went even further and went and knocked on Parliament's door tomorrow, we'll just wrap this up by saying, Canada, you need to be aware. You are actually being primed for the next steps, which is going to be, I believe, forced vaccinations and forced being tracked and traced. Eventually, in time, I don't know how long that time is, but it is going to involve our economy, and that we will not be using money anymore, and that we will be chipped or be forced to be chipped or asked to be chipped, of which I will never, ever take. And I advise you, if you're going to start bowing to the mask, which everybody is, Norman, Amina, I was the only person I saw in the entire 2 airports and 2 plane trips that did not have a mask on. The only person. We are all bowing to this. And of course, there's going to come, non-wearing face mask sharing. So one lady said, if anybody stares at you funny, just call them a Nazi. And,
right.
It works for them, right? But right. This is just the beginning.
Check out my YouTube video that I just posted today, Amina M on YouTube. And it's a clip of Norman purchasing a cell phone at the Apple Store, and just the process of what it's like to confront that, where you're not able to exercise your human right, where you're asked to wear a mask to go in the store. Didn't
Norman have to buy the phone outside the store?
I did, yeah. And I said I wouldn't wear a slave mask.
Wow.
You know what? It's the Western burqa, isn't it?
Well, that's what I feel like. I feel stifled in that thing, and my voice is being silenced, and you can't hear anyone when they're talking to you. I kept saying, what? I'm sorry, yeah. I cannot understand you. And then I also saw many people going like this when no one's looking, like, trying to breathe. Mm-hmm. And we're all good with this. We need to begin en masse refusing to wear these masks now. Well, and you know what? If anybody wants to say that this is about the virus, let's talk about the virus. The virus is this size and the mask is like this. Mm-hmm. And that virus can go through those mask strands in a heartbeat. Absolutely. And you tell me something else. When you're wearing a mask and you have to take it off to take a sip of water or eat something, is the virus going, oh, yeah, I'm not going to infect you because you're eating right now? Yeah. None of it makes sense.
Well, Amina and I are going off to get rich this afternoon. We're planning on we're going off to get rich.
Rich, okay.
We're going to. We're going. I think. Well, if you want to, if you don't want to get rich, then don't get rich. Okay. I will. I'll go get rich by myself. But we're going to the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. It's called the LCBO. It's the only place where you can buy vodka.
Right.
You can buy wine and beer in the corner stores, which I own that law as well. But we're going there because we need a bottle of vodka, and they're not going to let us in without a mask. Now, that's a government-owned store, a chain. And that's the only place where you can buy hard liquor. And they're going to refuse us service. And then they're going to have a nice big fat human rights complaint on their hand.
I love it. Do you
And
know
also,
we need to take a lesson from the Norman Traversy book?
My religion precludes me from wearing a mask, so I'll have also religious views, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not fair to my fellow Canadians, because when you have a face as good looking as mine is, it's a crime.
You shouldn't hide it. I love it. So you guys got into more trouble yesterday. Tell me a little bit about that.
Go ahead, Amina.
We did.
Yeah.
So Norman called me up and said, would you like to go down and see the Canadian Revolution? They're about to protest and walk up to the CBC radio and to Justin Trudeau's office. And I said, sure, I think this could be fun. So we headed on down, and they took a march and protest with pots and pans and banging as loud as they can in front of the CBC radio. And they did come out. They said that we were standing on their property, I believe. Mm-hmm. And we stood back. We were on the sidewalk. They wouldn't come out of the building. And they continued with the pots and pans and, you know, just calling them out as fake news as such. And then we went off walking to the Prime Minister's office, and they did the same thing. They spoke out loud on a speaker and protesting against crimes. And then Norman decided he was going to go up to the front door of the Prime Minister's office and ring the bell and ask to speak to Justin Trudeau. So why don't you carry on and say the rest?
I think before you do, I think we have a clip of that moment. So let's look at that first, and then you tell us what happens.
We're at Justin Trudeau's office in Ottawa, Canada.
Can Justin come out to talk to us?
Yeah,
He's not here. Do you know where he is?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, we thought we'd have a nice friendly chat, but I guess not.
He doesn't come by very often.
He doesn't come by very often, eh?
Not these days.
Is that because he's under house arrest?
House arrest, no.
Well, that's what we've been told. He's under house arrest, and that's why he's not going to the USMCA.
Not going to the USA because he doesn't want to get sick.
He doesn't want to get arrested, I think.
Yeah, okay.
He doesn't want to get arrested. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get ill.
Well, he won't get ill going down there. Donald Trump's fine. Just stay with Donald Trump and he'll be fine. She's gone.
He doesn't come by here very often.
Right?
Yeah, when I said he's worried about getting arrested.
Yeah.
And she just played along with it.
Can anybody do that, Norman? I'm sorry. Can we go up to the Prime Minister's office and ring the bell?
Well, I did.
There, yeah.
I did. There's a clip of me talking with the cops afterwards. We ended up with 4 cops.
Yeah, you can watch the whole video on my channel. It's
right,
there.
Amina M, right?
Yes, that's right.
You can see the whole video of Norman doing this. So what did the cops say?
He was very polite. He asked me, what did he ask me? He asked me where I lived, and I said Ottawa. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to give the specific address. And I said, we're the good guys. And then I said, I've filed a private prosecution against Justin Trudeau concerning the SNC-Lavalin affair, because I said, basically, you guys won't. So they were nice. They were polite. And I was polite. And see you later. Thanks a lot. And I think Amina thanked them for Wednesday on Dominion Day, because the Ottawa police were excellent that day.
We thanked them. We said we were patriots and we are pro for the police. We're not about defunding the police at all. They thanked us. They all thanked us. They said, they even said, take care. And it was a very great moment.
They weren't trying to intimidate. No. They were good. But I mean, you go knock on the Prime Minister's door, of course the police are going to show up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I was mocking him. So
right. I put up, well, it's incredible. And everything that you've done, I put up on this Justice for Canada website here that everyone can see, because on this website, you can see the document that you delivered to the U.S. Embassy, so, and as well to Mexico. And let's talk about that as well next. But you can see the allegations and what you are basically wanting Trudeau to be held accountable for. So that's on Justice for Canada.
.ca.
Yes.
So
and then you were saying that Mexico seems to be listening.
Yeah, we had fun. Do you want to tell them about us going to the Mexican embassy?
Sure. It was the day before, and again, Norman gave me a call and said, "Would you like to go down with me and deliver? You can take footage of me delivering the documents to the Mexican embassy." So we went down. We got into the building, and the security guard led us right up to the 10th floor, and we walked right in, and he served the papers where the lady behind the desk accepted them, and she read out the president's name of Mexico, and he said, "Yes, thank you very much." And we walked out, and it was as easy as that. And
then we said, run away. We wanted to get away before they decided to give it back to us.
And so this article that we just had then up, Norman, is brand new, and it's basically saying that's Mexican for investigating Trudeau.
Yeah.
That was today, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the date is on that, but it's quite either yesterday or today.
You gotta love it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just take a moment and celebrate.
Yeah.
And I mean, frankly, don't you think that Trump is already aware that we've got a problem with Trudeau?
Yeah.
We know he is.
There's a general down there that Amina and I know, and who regularly is in touch with President Trump. Mm-hmm. He's retired, but he's an advisor. And I wrote a 2-page document, I guess it was this year, and he did get it. Oh, there's my letter. Yeah, he gets it. Big fat signature on there.
And
there's your letter. And as well, if they go to Justice for Canada, they will see the rest of all the documents that you have submitted that are not just this letter that you gave out that day. And we got to see that letter. But
right.
you're not messing around, Norman.
No, I'm not.
No.
That's a historic document, because when has an individual demanded that 2 countries investigate another country? Never.
Also, the general aided in having what Norman is doing known to Q, the QAnon movement. And Q did a post of Norman Traversy speaking towards the end of his speech on Dominion Day.
Yeah. No,
well, that's quite significant.
I've been cued, and that's worldwide if you're cued. Yeah. Putin would have seen that.
What is your greatest hope, Norman?
Speech. Huh?
What is your greatest hope to come out of this? What is the most serious allegation you feel that you're making and that you would like to see taken seriously?
Well, it's all serious, but the most serious thing is the kids. It's always the kids. Nothing's more important than the next generation, right? We gotta look out for them. That's the most important. That gets fixed, because right now we've basically got human trafficking here in Canada, and that's got to be fixed. It's got to be looked at, and we're a hub of corruption here. So that's my greatest hope. And then also, people need to realize that they have power. You have power, Laura Lynn. You have power, and you have rights. And you're born with those rights. Those rights can be taken away, like forcing you to wear a mask or trying to force you to wear a mask. They can be taken away, but they can't be granted. They are called God-given rights. You're born with them. And people need to realize that. How many people have told me, well, I follow the rules. Well, I'm sorry. It's if you've got Anne Frank in your attic, you lie to the Nazis, right? You lie. That's what you do. And you have to protect the next generation on doing whatever it takes. And if that means marching to the US Embassy, or if that means going to the Mexican Embassy, that's what I'll do, because now, because of the internet, I know that there are thousands of people behind me, backing me, because of this. So it's not just me anymore. It was
the
me.
other thing, Norman, is what's happening is people are beginning to talk. Because of your connections, I've recently been talking to a retired RCMP and people who know that things have been covered up, that British Columbia, I am very sad to say this because I love British Columbia, but this is a hub of corruption. And I have had 3 different people with intimate knowledge of what's going on, knowing that BC has had serious corruption within its forces. And it's not everybody, thank God. But it seems that when you begin to get into higher up places of our systems, we have corruption. And people, I don't know, is it greed? Is it power? Is it blackmail? Because I think people get blackmail too.
Laura Lynn, I'm intervening at the Supreme Court of BC, along with the Chilcotin Nation and some other people. And the RCMP has asked the Supreme Court of BC for permission to destroy all the evidence from the Picton pig farm. Now that's
ridiculous.
That is supposed to be held for at least 80 years. And it's only been 18. Now, why is it all of a sudden they want to destroy this evidence? Why?
Why is it?
Why is it? And I was on the phone. We had a phone meeting with the Supreme Court judge, and he was not very happy with me because I brought in other matters, like me being locked out of a courtroom here in Ontario. Well, he's a Supreme Court judge, and he's an officer of the court. And I've just made him aware of a crime, obstruction of justice. Now, what is he going to do with it? Is he going to do something about it? He'd better. I've just made a judge aware of a crime. If there's no investigation into that, then he's culpable, and he knows it. Anybody that is connected with me, unless they're clean, they're going to go down as well. So he's going to have to tell me, he's going to have to answer to me on the 27th as to what he's done after being informed. Can
we go to court when you're there? Are the courts open yet?
Yes. Yeah, you can. Well, I've been invited. I said I'm a disabled former firefighter, and unless you want to fly me out in a private plane, I can't go. So if they want to fly me out in a private plane, that's fine.
Right. And so is there another hearing July 27th?
27th or 28th, I'm not sure. Okay. But if anybody watching this wants to contact the BC Supreme Court and look into it, it's Picton Pig Farm, RCMP, and the pig farm, because there is a book there in evidence, and it's got the names of everybody of note that went to that pig farm. And guess whose name is probably in it? I'll let you guess. He lived in BC at the time. He lived a 5-minute drive from that pig farm. So, well, that's, I think, why they want to destroy it. Oh, we've lost you, Linda.
Laura.
Sorry, Laura.
We lost your sound.
We lost your sound.
We've lost your sound.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay. All right, we'll try this until we get the other problem sorted. So how on earth have there not been more prosecutions in the Picton farm issue? From what I understand, all kinds of stuff went on there. To date, we've only got Willie Picton in jail, right, Norm?
That's correct. And Willie Picton, he said he worked 14 hours a day on that farm. And it wasn't just a pig farm. There was all kinds of different livestock on that farm. And he said he worked 14 hours a day and then he went to bed. And he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he never took drugs. And he never went to one of those parties. He just worked on that farm and went to bed. He was set up. And he says he's slow of thinking.
Let that sink in, British Columbia. Let that sink in, that Willie Picton never got to testify on his own behalf.
They wouldn't let him.
They wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
So he says he's slow of thinking. People around him have indicated that he didn't have what it took to have coordinated and put together the big parties, the criminal activity going on. And I have to say that it's more hideous than any of us can imagine. And so far, has anybody else, had charges laid in connection to this?
No. And we're talking, once again, we're talking children. We're talking teenage girls, a lot of them from the Chilcotin Nation. And they were targeted. They knew they wouldn't be missed. It was quite the operation, and there's no way Willie was capable of it. I'm not saying he's innocent. He may have known what was going on.
Yeah, and he may have participated, and he's getting his just due, but he's the only person in all of this.
Yeah, that's correct.
And there are other things. There are, there's a lot of corruption in our judicial systems, in certain factions of the RCMP, the Ministry of Social Service. It takes a certain number of people to work together and collaborate for whatever crazy, disgusting reasons that would happen. It takes a lot of people putting their resources together to make something as evil that has taken place, to come to be.
This is why it's wonderful that Mexico says they're investigating, because they haven't got any chips in the game. Like, they haven't got anything to lose, right? They probably don't have family in the Canadian government.
Right.
They're disinterested, right?
Yep, they're objective.
Yeah, same with the Americans. And it would work to their benefit.
Mm-hmm. There's so many things that have not been solved. The missing Indigenous women, the Hemlock Valley murders. My high school friend was Tracy Olajide, and she was murdered. And she was one of the girls. And I'd love to find justice for Tracy, and for the precious women that have gone missing, that seem to be forgotten and ignored, and a lot of resources not put where they should be in order to solve these murders.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
But that falls under the child trafficking, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. It's all connected.
And that's why what you've done has been so important, Norman. And I think that as Canadians, we're so grateful for somebody doing something. And what you discovered, what was the story on how you discovered that you could literally hold Justin Trudeau to account? How did you figure that out?
I didn't figure it out. I always knew it. I was a history major at Carleton University. And so I knew about the Magna Carta, the Great Charter. And that's where the nobles were being overtaxed by King John. And they cornered him in a field called Runnymede. and they forced him to sign a document saying no one is above the law, and the king is not above the law. And there were actually, I believe, 4 different Magna Cartas, pertaining to different aspects of the law. But that was, I'm probably wrong, but it was 1318.
Yeah.
Well, it was the 14th century. And King Richard was imprisoned in Bavaria, and they had to raise a king's ransom to get him out. And that's why the taxes were so high. And that's why the nobles revolted and said, look, you're not above us. And that's the Great Charter. And that means that the prime minister is not above the law. And if it's section 507, I believe, of the Criminal Code of Canada that empowers an individual to file a prosecution if the police won't. So if we've got corrupt police that will not look into Justin Trudeau, and they won't, then I have the authority to do that. And I exercise that authority. And according to my neighbor, who's a lawyer and a law professor, when I did that, I became the crown, because we didn't always have police. Police have only been around for about 150 years. Before that, the king or the queen relied on individuals to make the king or queen aware of criminal activity. And so it was not just my right, it was my duty to do what I did. And now everyone realizes everyone can do that. Anybody else that wants to file a private prosecution, look at mine, copy it, take my name out, put your name in, go to your local courthouse and file it. And
one of the things you said, Norman, was you talked about when you were buzzing on the Prime Minister's office, you said, is he under house arrest? Like, there are some pictures floating around. I know things can be doctored. I'm in media, and how you edit something is important. I've had it happen to me numerous times that, I make a statement and they use a part of the statement, and it's ridiculous. This is what goes on, and you can Photoshop, but there have been pictures circulating that show some sort of, band around Justin Trudeau's leg. And I don't know if that's true, or if it's some kind of tracking device that's totally legitimate, or if he's actually arrested and maybe Trump knows more than we think. I don't know what the possibilities are.
I think that's probably, and I think I mentioned that outside the door, that's why he's not going to the USMCA conference, because he's not allowed to leave his house.
Or the country. He's not allowed to leave the country.
Okay. That could
and of
be
course, I guess we say that we're speculating, because some things, why would a prime minister not be going to this huge celebration of this coming together of this kind of treaty?
Yeah, and Laura Lee, that it is a speculation. We don't really know. But if he is under house arrest, then he wouldn't be able to leave the country. I believe he's allowed to go to his office somewhere. I don't know the true, rules around that. But it is all speculation. But it's certainly one, like you say, there are a lot of pictures going around showing the ankle bracelet, and it's. I think we will find out if it is true.
Well, what I want is that if there is any at all association to any crimes against children, that is found out. And when you look at, how many pedophiles can you know in your lifetime? I was in contact with one that I know went to prison. Like, that's in my lifetime. But for someone like Trudeau, his best friend gets arrested for, having pedophilic pictures. And then there's other liaisons. It's very interesting. And then he uses this symbol on the Trudeau Foundation, I believe it was, that is remarkably similar to the pedophile symbol.
Laura Lynn, it's not similar, it's identical. It's identical. It's the shape that's important, not the colors, although it's usually blue, but it's the shape that's important. And also not just his best friend, but his roommate did time for pedophilia. His roommate, while he was in BC, while he lived really close to that Picton farm.
All I think Canadians want is that if there's smoke that belongs to a fire, we want it dealt with. I don't think that's too much to ask for the highest office in the land to have moral credibility that we can trust. And I won't forget this right before the election, October 2019, because I was running for a seat as to be member of parliament. And so I was watching everything going on. I mean, you're looking for any information that you can use to, advance your position in your party and bring, some ill repute against someone else. But there was supposed to be a big story breaking, and it was literally days before the election, and it was on Trudeau, and everybody went, what? And it was all a buzz that there was a story breaking and that they had to stop the presses of one of the magazines or, newspapers printing this story. And we were shocked because within a day or so, we waited for the outpouring of this and death silence. Nobody's talking about it. There's no story. Everyone just goes, brr. And of course, we know that Trudeau literally is paying for the silence of our immoral and corrupt mainstream media in Canada. $595 million that we know of, he pays to mainstream media to give his version of events, and not to mention all the other money he's constantly pouring in. And now this scandal with the charity.
Mm-hmm.
Laura Lynn, you were at that march.
Yes.
What do you estimate? How many people do you estimate were there?
Wow, I thought at the beginning of the day it was 2,000 to 3,000 people.
At the beginning.
Yes, at the beginning. Yeah, and Norman, most of those people, they kind of left with you. By the end of the day, it was very hot. We were down to, our couple hundred of faithful people.
CBC reported that a couple of dozen people were there.
You're kidding.
Amanda Pfeffer.
Wow.
I know, I've had coffee with her. I know her. She reported a couple of dozen people were there.
Wow.
She must have gone at 3 a.m. or something. There were a couple of dozen people at the party we were at.
Just look at the video. There was, a couple hundred video feeds going at the same time. My video feed is easy to see that there was, thousands. It was just huge. The whole place was packed. Trudeau was unsuccessful in shutting down Dominion.
Yeah, and Sussex Street in front of the U.S. Embassy was completely full, all the way up.
We had to ask them to keep moving north so that more people could come by and see the document.
Right. Yes. It's quite a thing that you've done, Norman, and I think that Canadians are really excited about it. I just want to thank you for standing for our nation. We'd like to keep following what's happening. Would that be on justiceforcanada.ca?
Yes, and Amina and I are going to go off to try and buy a bottle of vodka.
Okay.
Definitely follow my channel. I'll be posting many videos to come.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Anytime you'd like to chat.
Is there anything you want to say to Canada to encourage people? I love what you're saying about standing up for your rights. First it's masks, then it's going to be vaccinations, then it's going to be chipping, tracking, tracing. We cannot be fools. This is only the beginning of a massive takedown of our rights.
I agree, Laura. And I think if I could say anything is ask questions, use critical thinking. It's really important to start questioning everything and seek the answers that you can that way. And don't be afraid to ask questions and exercise your human right if you feel you're being violated.
And people don't ask questions, actually. They just comply. Fear is the new virus. Everyone is so afraid. And even as we get, there was I don't know if we have that one-page graphic, Mr. Producer Man, that has that there's barely anyone who suffers at all from this virus under the age of 45. It's really the elderly that have suffered. And if, I don't know if we can make that any bigger, but if the elderly got hydroxychloroquine and zinc immediately, and Dr. Zelenko was tweeting about this today, but if they get that protocol, they will be okay. But look at this, close to 0% for people under 45. Anyone under 45, which is pretty much most of the people on that plane are fine. And then it's 0.05% to 0.3% for 45 to 70-year-olds, and then substantially higher for 70 plus, you know, which is why it's important that you know, the elderly are cared for and protected, and certainly have, you know,
Laura Lynn, you might want to look at this, but I read somewhere today that the World Health Organization has gone back on masks and said they're not necessary, and social distancing isn't necessary either.
Mm-hmm. Every day I find that I'm posting some new narrative, some new thing that they're saying, you know, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And it's very frustrating, Norman, and it makes you think that they have, you know, our heads really just spinning. And even as I also have a clip of this lady on how they're counting COVID deaths. And so COVID deaths are anyone, if you died in a car crash, but you had COVID-19 in your bloodstream, then you died of COVID-19. That's how they're counting the deaths. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It is.
And when you actually remove all that false information, we are not dealing with something that is the pandemic that they predicted.
Right.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about enough of that. So I thank you for standing. I'll let you go. We'll talk again. Thank you so much for the information. Norman, thank you for being a true hero. And
thank you, Amina,
thanks for taking good care of him. It's wonderful that you two are having some time together and having some fun. You know what? Standing up for your country is fun. I've decided that I'm not going to be miserable anymore. I was a little bit afraid of what was going on to our country, and I was getting in a real funk. And in fact, you know, I can find myself in moments like, you know, people are losing their businesses. They can't pay for anything. We've got corruption. We have to take our prime minister to task with other countries because we're so upset. But I decided, you know what? Whatever will be, will be. So I'm going to trust that my role is going to be to stand up very strongly. My role is going to be to do what I can do, and also to stand with those who are standing. Many people cannot do what you're doing, Norman. They'll lose their jobs. They can't stand the way you're standing, or the way I'm standing, or the way Amina is standing, because they will not be able to survive economically because of what we're doing. So we're asking the country to stand together with us, even if you're the silent backer of what is going on.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. I really appreciate having us on, and I stand with you.
Thank you, Amina.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Both as well. Have a great day buying your vodka, apparently. Okay.
we'll see how that works out.
Okay. All right. God bless. Thank you. You know, it's not easy to deliver the truth of what our sick world is doing, but for some of us, we feel that we have no choice. Because if we are silent about these abominable things, then we are letting evil go unchecked, and we cannot do that. We need to start talking about these issues, bring this discussion to those around us, educate our children. For those of you wonderful people who are writing me and are sharing your encouragement, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for all the letters that you've been sending. Thank you for the donations and the support. I found out that in order to speak the truth, you have to become very, very strong. I'm deeply grateful for all of your kindness that you have shared with me. If you would go to my website at www.lauralynn.tv, you'll find all of the ways that you can contact me. You can also reach me at P.O. Box 48184, New Westminster, BC, V3M0A7. Thank you for joining with me today. Thank you for fighting with me. Thank you for standing with me. Sometimes it feels like our world is a very dark place, but I have hope. I have hope that if we stand, if we will link arms against evil, that we will overcome. Remember, my friends, all is well. All is well. Thanks for joining me.